really know if like I want to do chats during the live because I know that people can have, I don't know, different experiences and different opinions and stuff. And so it's always a little bit tough to tell whether or not like going live would be like a good thing. The other thing is that my my voice is a little bit strained. I think that it's just asthma, but I mean, it could be other things. So I wanted to briefly go live and talk about the Connecticut foster care system. I think that a lot of people are aware that the foster care system has much left to be desired. However, there is like a lot of like philosophical stuff here, and so like I do want to talk eventually about that in like a more how the government should take care of kids type of thing. Because I think that it is important to talk about like really, really kind of philosophical, deep political stuff. Not just as like, oh, Democrat or Republican. I mean, like essential things for how governments should run. But like I know that I don't have enough time for that. So yeah, my voice is a little weird, and like I think that there's a deeper conversation to have about this. Because I don't think that people really understand that, unfortunately. There are a lot of like governments that don't care about taking care of kids and do not care about the livelihood of kids. They don't care about like keeping kids alive. So there's like a whole thing with that I'm like, that seems like that should be like a discussion. But let's talk about the foster care system. Okay, so oh, there's a lot to this, and it's one of those things where I'm just like, oh man, okay. The two things that I want to focus on are the savior complex of some people who do end up adopting, because that is one of my specialties is like kids who have been adopted or through the foster care system, like adults, sorry, not kids. Yes, kids too, but like mostly adults who have been either adopted as kids or went through the foster care system. So there are some changes that are going on within the foster care system. Well, the savior complex. Oh my god, and then changes to the Connecticut foster care system. So the savior complex of people are who like do adoption is like so crazy to me because they are like really out there being like there, and it's a whole system of people who truly truly believe that they are very very good people and providing so much for a child, right? um when they adopt a child. um and this can get to people like they can feel like, oh, I'm such a savior to someone, and like that could really mess with their mind about like who they are as a person and what is expected from a child who is adopted, because some parents who have adopted kids do feel like I pulled you out of the worst. You have to respect me. You have to act as if you appreciate everything that I do. And like, oof, that's a little bit of a tough one because it's like kids are ungrateful sometimes. Like kids don't have to see that like, this is like a good thing, and like some kids are unfortunately better off like being not adopted, not being adopted. Um oh my gosh, there's like so much with that I'm like, oh my god, I have so many stories of like people who just like they just got adopted to ship families, and it's like it's so sad because it's like, no, you really do want to believe that people who like have adopted and offered things out of the kindness of their heart, but like where would a toxic person live in that? they would definitely live in that. They would definitely get an ego boost every time someone is like, "Oh my god, you adopted a child. Oh, that is so great of you," without the context of who that person is, right? There's a whole lot that, oh my gosh, that goes into that. And I do try to stick to famous cases, especially with Moses Farrow being a therapist in Connecticut, and his story being very publicized of like how his mom was abusive to not only him but to other, oh my god, two kids who she adopted who had disabilities, and how awful she was to them. Okay, like he wrote a whole book about this. Okay, like he has talked extensively about Mia Farrow's abuse. Like it's one of those things where I'm just like, oh my god, like it just, oh my god, oh my god. Again, where would a toxic person be in that? And there is so much to exploit, unfortunately, from the adoption system that is, it's insidious. Like it's it can be really disgusting the farther that you get into it. And like, the more that you find out about like how many people have been abused by their adoptive parents, it just like it uh there's I don't even know I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say, you know, because there is so much with that. And it's awful. It's awful. But again, we create a system where we are okay with telling people that they're doing so much. They honestly are just wonderful. And for I'm guessing a lot of people that is the full intent, like that they are adopting because something happened. They don't have their own kids, or they do have their own kids. They want more kids, whatever it is, they want to provide. And like the then and some families are great. Like they're not the families that would come to me, right? They wouldn't be in therapy because they'd be fine. Who am I getting? I'm getting the kids who are, and the adults who are not fine. And the absolute terrible abuse that goes on with that is ridiculous. The other part of that is the Connecticut foster care system. And so uh, it's so I'm so tempted. I'm so tempted to be like, they don't care. They don't care. Because if they had any ounce of caring, they wouldn't have the policies that they have. Okay. I understand where they're coming from, but the way that they're going about it is wrong. It's just my opinion. It's my opinion. So they changed their policy. I don't even know if it's a law. I think it's just their bureaucracy. They are within the government and not in the government, all of that stuff. So like I think they just changed the policy and it's just kind of adopted, right? Like it's just the way that they do things now. The way that they do things is that within 1 year, a foster parent who is like, and the parental rights have been terminated, right? They have 1 year to decide whether or not they want to adopt the foster child. 1 year. Okay. I have known situations where the parent didn't, the foster parent didn't, they were going to struggle with providing services for the foster care or for the foster child if there was an adoption, because like the I guess whatever like stipend, whatever help that the state was giving to that family was helpful in treatment for that child. And then there was more navigation that was happening toward like figuring out what their needs were going to be and change, right, for a teenager who has been traumatized. Like they had this foster care kid or foster. I keep accidentally doing that. Foster kid. They had this foster kid for like, let's say 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, 2 to 4 years. And the needs for the first, let's say it was 4 years, for the first 2 years were like fine, like, okay, we're establishing care, we're establishing consistency, we're establishing all this. And then that child became a teenager and had totally different emotional needs. And the foster parent couldn't figure out like what was going to be necessary next. And so wanted to continue to be a long-term foster, but wasn't sure about adoption. That was like the whole thing was like, I need the assistance from the state, but like I couldn't, like the parent couldn't adopt the child outright because like the assistance was necessary for the emotional needs. And as things got further along, there were more questions. And so then this policy change happened. And the policy change was like, you have to now, we're on a time crunch. Like, you have to determine whether or not you want to adopt this kid. And there was reluctance. And then, and DCF fucked over this kid. Like, I can't, it's like, it's one of these things where I'm like, I can't see it any other way. Like, denied medication on more than once. And it was like, how like it, the medical professionals get mad at like insurance companies for being like, you can't decide what a doctor can and can't do for their like for their patient. The state was telling the foster kid and the doctor what medications the foster kid could be on. And then there was like another instance where like there was a hospitalization and like the DCF did nothing for like a couple of days. And it was like, excuse you, who is this benefiting and what are you doing? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you like choose to like just ignore the needs of a child? Like, and let's say hypothetical situation. You have a child who is getting older. You have a child who is having like structure, like who's going to have some difficulty, right? And like you like they're getting older, right? And like people want to adopt babies, they want to foster babies, they don't want to foster kids who are like a little bit older. Like it's just one of those things. The farther you get into this, the more disgusting it becomes. Like it's, oh God, the unwanted, oh God, I can't. So let's say that you have a child who's growing older, they're getting to their teenage years, they are becoming more and more of the of an unwanted child. And you like DCF is putting them in situations for 1 year and pulling them out. I totally get why they would be like, hey, you got 1 year. We're not doing this like long-term foster care. We don't, for whatever reason, we don't think that it works, right? But like to then pull that child out and and start with another family for 1 year, and then pull that child out and start with one family for 1 year, and hope that they are going to find a family, a good fit, like that this is not going to affect them in any way. Like, all right, well, okay, so reactive attachment disorder, that is something that when you don't have a caregiver before the age of 5, a consistent caregiver before the age of 5, that you can develop. And the more that you're put into houses and pulled away, like that's going to further that. Do you understand? Like that's fucked up. And then like some contributing factors to ADHD would be living in many houses. That's in the DSM-5. Okay. So what are you guys doing here? Like, what are you guys doing here? Like, it's a policy that at the end of the day is just not going to help. And I think that it will be beneficial for a whole lot of people to start having these conversations, start figuring out what policies are going on in your state and really thinking and talking and figuring out what a better way would be. Because like I can tell you from Connecticut, it's not it. It's not it. But I will say that at least we have a government that does want to, for some kids, most kids, US citizens, I don't know how to describe that, um, does care about kids' livelihoods enough that they do want to do something and like does have this whole system set up for people to be reunited, to like get better, to like to learn, to um and that there are systems set in place where it's like, okay, so we do have a foster care family for this person, we do have someone who is willing to foster, all of these things that like they are helpful. I think the other issue within the state of Connecticut is that so there started to become more money for the people who are refugees and less money for like group homes for the kids and teens and stuff who would have difficulty finding foster homes. It's a whole system. It's a whole system. So like they did end up like closing down kind of like a, at least a couple of the group homes that were aimed at like providing structure for teenagers who would be difficult to place because they were doing more refugee stuff. So like there I don't agree with that, obviously. There are some things I don't agree with, but I do agree that there needs to be a system set up like this in some way. It just like I think we can all agree, hopefully, that it just needs to be run better. It just needs to be run better. Like and every state like could be run better. And like we really do need to like focus on that at some point because like it's not fair to the kids who do end up in these terrible situations either because of their own brain chemistry or um like yeah, either their own brain chemistry or their family situation that they end up that way, like that they end up in the foster care system. Like yeah, like I appreciate it, but I am also like, and we need a little bit of tweaks there. Anyway, I will talk with you all soon and I hope you have a great night. And yeah, all right. Thanks so much. All right. Bye.